Hi, I'm Jamie. This is Dead Dodge Garage, and this is a 1986 Dodge D150 Royal SE. Yeah, it says Ram on it, but I choose to ignore that. As you may be able to tell, this is a single cab, long bed, two-wheel drive truck, as the D in that model designation I gave you a minute ago explains. This truck belongs to subscriber and live stream commenter Stephen Andrews. He's been talking with us here at Rocket about getting it running for a few months now. Well, it's finally here. Apparently, this was Stephen's father's truck. It's definitely been off the road for quite some time, and apparently, it was parked in the woods and left there for quite a while. Yeah, I believe that, looking at all of this. You know, what didn't blow off on the way here. Last tab was in 2007. 17 years this thing's been sitting. Apparently, it was purchased at Larson Dodge in Puyallup. Very cool. Now, what's interesting to me is the amount of paint left on this truck. If you know 80s and 90s Chrysler, you know that they weren't very good at painting things, and it's pretty typical to see all of this, like surface rust, deteriorating like it's been soaked in acid. From what I can see of this thing from the ground, it's actually pretty nice. Now, as mentioned, this is a Royal SE model. What does that mean? That means trim, and not much more. Notice it's got chrome surrounds on the taillights. It's got trim spears here and here. It's got a finish panel in the middle of the tailgate. In later years, they used a full face panel that covered this entire thing. Then there's another trim level here. It's got the lower body molding here with a plasticky rubbery strip glued onto it. If you look, you'll see the two ridges there. That's because that is the same piece of trim that was used on these trucks to dress them up in the 70s. Being in 86, this is the first year for this plastic crosshair grille. That is the same grille that was found on the very first Cummins truck when it hit the market in 1989. It replaced the previous style grille that was in use through 1985. It had like a egg crate design kind of thing, I guess. This must have been the weather side because there's a lot more paint missing. The silver of the two-tone there has come away to reveal red underneath, but still, no horrible surface rust. There's a whole lot more moss. Unfortunately, the hood has a crease in it. Apparently that happened recently because the hinges are half jammed up. This thing should have a ram's head hood ornament. Of course it's missing. That's pretty common. There is actually a bit more to the Royal SE package. First off, there's wood trim. This truck has the fancy wood grain gauge surround bezel. It's got wood and pull handles on the doors. This thing even has power windows. I think that's a separate option. It's got delay wipers, it's got a tilt column, and it's got a nicely padded and upholstered front seat. Not all of these trucks, but the vast majority of these trucks have a sliding window, and this one does. It also has a headliner, which, at least in the 70s, was not standard equipment. That gauge bezel is unfortunately broken. The odometer reads 88,560 miles. I do notice that the numbers are not perfectly in line, so that could have rolled over. Yeah, there's a good bit of slide wear on the seat. The brake pedal shows some wear. The carpet was actually pretty decent when this thing was parked, so I don't know if that's original or not. Interesting factoid. If you got an 80s Dodge truck, and maybe even earlier, with a tilt column, you got a General Motors steering column. Chrysler didn't actually make a tilting truck column in-house, and they bought them from other companies. Notice there's a rod right here for the ignition switch. That is not typically found in Chrysler products. Usually it's a rotating switch right in here. But again, GM column. Now it does have a normal Chrysler Pentastar key. I'm not familiar with this control style. But note it's got vents everywhere. Of course, they look like an afterthought. They're just kind of goobered onto these other pieces. There is what appears to be a new battery sitting on the floor, so that's good. I don't know what this thing is. Is that part of this goofy air conditioning system? Was this like an add-on dealer kit or something? Is that why it looks so weird and hacky? I don't know. There appears to be a crap catcher built into that. It'll be interesting to see what the AC system looks like under the hood. I haven't been there yet. This truck did have a cargo light. That's pretty common, but not all of them did. All right, let's figure out what we're working with here. If this cable even works. I need two hands. Now this is seized solid, but I think this might work. It's not latched, presumably due to the aforementioned incident. The secondary still moves, so that's good. Oh, yeah, that's not a happy hood. Yep, It's an engine. It's got a 2-barrel carburetor, so it pretty much has to be a 318. And, yeah, the vacuum routing sticker confirms that. 5.2 liter. There's the AC compressor right on top. Note that is the smaller Sandin style, and it's mounted on some brackets that look kind of goofy. None of this really looks familiar to me, and the fact that it was already run on R134 tells me this kit was added to the truck maybe sometime in the 90s. R134 started coming into use around 92, something like that. Yeah, there you go. WINS Climate Systems. All right, question answered. That was indeed an AC conversion kit. Not a dealer kit either. Aftermarket stuff. Well, I think I've figured out what's wrong with the hood. It is just disintegrating. That's really unfortunate, but there's not much good metal left in there. This is your standard cruising model 318 LA small block engine. Unfortunately, because it's from the 80s, this thing is equipped with something called lean burn. Lean burn is a computer-controlled ignition system. Now, earlier versions of this system had that computer mounted on the air cleaner. In the 80s, they moved it in here. Here's the magic lean burn computer. It's mounted inside the driver's side fender, which incidentally is where the ECMs for later fuel injection engines were put on these trucks. Apparently there was a bush growing through here. That's awesome. Souvenir. I know this will come as a shock, but there have been some critters here. Anyway, lean burn. Even when these systems were new, they were kind of terrible. And 30, 40 years on, that module may well be dead. The issue is, we can't just convert this right over to a standard ignition system either, because the distributor for this system is special. It has no advanced mechanism whatsoever. There are no weights, and there's no vacuum pod. They're fully computer controlled. Just like later EFI systems, incidentally. That means when the computer is inevitably bad, it's going to be a bit of a job to put standard ignition in here. For now, I'm going to hope that it still works, until proven otherwise. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, we need to see if this engine is even going to do engine stuff. Okay, well, it's pretty much dead in the middle of the happy range. And it smells like oil. Not at all like horrible gas, unlike the other fun project I'm working on today. Come on. Thank you. Original rad cap with nothing under it. Number 2 plug wire's off for some reason, and it has been for a very, very long time. Wonder if the plug's loose. No? We'll go ahead and pop that back on. And now I'm covered in spider webs. Transmission fluid looks pretty clean, smells decent, and is a good bit over full. That's a good sign. It's highly likely fluid has been pouring out of this transmission somewhere as the torque converter drained down into it over the years. And I'm sure we'll have to add some fluid, but there's a good bit left. This big connector here is for that electronic control system, and apparently it's been apart before, judging by the zip tie holding it together. This is a resistor pack for the electric assisted choke, and it's been off for years. Everything else seems to be connected. Choke moves. This may look like the standard BBD 2-barrel carburetor from the 70s with a tumor growing on it, but it's actually some kind of horrible holly. Also, the throttle linkage kind of moves, but the throttle shaft itself does not at all. So that's a good sign. I take that back. The throttles actually are moving a little bit in there. There's a plug on this side, so I couldn't see the shaft. Notice this engine is equipped with an air pump or smog pump. This thing's job is to inject air into the exhaust side of the engine. It's supposed to help burn any unused hydrocarbons as they exit and reduce tailpipe emissions. That might even work. Those things pretty much went away with the advent of EFI and more precise fuel controlling. Usually those things are seized, so it's kind of surprising to still see a belt on one. This old battery in the truck says May 2005. And that sounds right. It was about 2 years old when the truck was parked. Anywho, as you may know, it's kind of hard to get an engine running if it won't, turn. So I thought I'd give that a shot on this one. And of course, it's got one of those fans on a clutch. And there's a bunch of crap in the way up there, so I just crawled underneath the truck, which is not comfortable. And I tried to turn it with this big breaker bar. I tried to turn it forward. It would not budge. This is like a 2.5 foot long breaker bar. Then I decided to go backwards on the bolt, and I got it to turn a little bit, but Not much. Let's see if I can get it to go back the other way. I'm having flashbacks to my 64 Power Wagon because that's pretty much what happened with that. It would turn ever so slightly backwards and then it would just lock again. That turned out to be a broken ring. On this truck, I'm pretty sure 17 years in the woods has not done this engine any favors. If I can get it to make a full rotation, well, we might still have a show. Maybe. This is really hard to line up. Because it's two-wheel drive, it's too close to the trailer deck for the bar to actually swing around. This is just as terrible as it looks. You know, we kind of thought this would just be easy. And it would fire right up and drive off the trailer. Maybe not so much. Okay, well, did go forward that amount again. Let's see. It's loosened up. I'm gonna go get a smaller handle. And of course, I'm gonna make Tom get, because I really don't want to be crawling in and out of here today. Goofed up my back the other day. Something about flipping a D150 short bed frame upside down on the ground. Oh, good. Thanks. Everybody cross your fingers. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It just locks totally solid right back where it was. Let's go backwards again. Whew. Now, ooh, that's not good. I've seen this show before. Now, I know I mentioned the possibility of a seized air pump, but I don't think that's what this is. It like stops dead, but it turns those 15, 20 degrees, no problem. Did I mention my back hurts? Yeah, it just comes up hard right there. So, one of two-ish things is happening here. Either there is a horrible rust ring in one of these cylinders where the top ring was sitting, and I was able to get down off of it, but then it runs into something else in another cylinder, or rust underneath that piston or something. Or we may have a seized valve. That's another possibility. I'm inclined to think rings, though. I mean, it just stops dead. I'm pretty sure if it was a valve with this, I may be able to power through, you know, bend the push rod. I'm not having a good time. Did I mention this truck is absolutely disgusting? Well, it is. It is never a good sign when you have to chip like chipmunk house nut bits off to remove spark plugs. Yeah, not good. And as you saw, this truck is just sitting on a trailer way away from the shop, so we can't exactly just hit this with compressed air or a vacuum either. Here's plug number one. It actually looks like it ran pretty decent when it ran last. Maybe a little rich, but not bad overall. I was working on another seized engine for a video that you probably haven't seen yet, may not see for a while. And when I pulled the plugs on that one, I never did find like obvious signs of rust. Not the case here. Look at that. That is nasty. Not looking too good. Clearly, there was some kind of moisture in number 3. 5 and 7 look great. Yeah, I might have gotten some chipmunk crap in number 7. I don't want to talk about it. The plug from number 2, which of course had the wire off of it for years, super black. Like, very, very rich. So that's interesting. It also kind of smelled like old gas, so maybe it ran with that wire off. I don't know. The other 3 look relatively normal, although number 4 does have some rust. Now, cylinders 3 and 4 are right next to each other in the firing order, 1, 8, 4, 3. So one has to wonder if either exhaust or intake valves for both of those were hanging open. Moisture got in through those valves, and that is why the engine doesn't want to turn now. A good thing to do would be to drop a camera down there. I'll consider it. Tell you what, we can probably skip that step. Took my handy dandy pocket light, shined it down number 3. There are obvious signs of rust down there. So I'm going to get some kind of magic sauce and fill that cylinder with it. While I'm at it, I suppose I'll put some in all the other ones. And then all of the people that complain that I never do these revival things the right way will hopefully be appeased. If you've ever watched much revival type content, you know that everyone who's ever unseized an engine uses a different special sauce. Marvel Mystery Oil, spray penetrant, transmission fluid, diesel fuel. This is an oiling can full of a unique mixture of all of those. Hopefully it'll do something. What you want to do is create a little swimming pool on top of the offended piston and let it sit there and soak for quite a while. So that's what we're going to do now. I did not completely brim it, but only because I don't have enough of this stuff to do that. I definitely covered the top of the piston, so there should be some all around it. Well, it's a week later, and honestly, I didn't think this thing was going to go. But that is the puddle of success. I went back and forth in the area where the crank would turn, and, well, it didn't want to go past that still. Ended up going backwards a little bit farther than it had before, and you could feel it kind of notching. Then I spun around and went forwards again. I was using the breaker bar, and I was up here on top, which I'll just tell you right now isn't easy with that fan in the way, but I did get it to work. I was able to just carefully, slowly notch past that point, working back and forth the whole time, and eventually it just kind of went past it and started going. So now this is happening. Wow. It's the sound I hate. What are the chances this just works? I'm thinking low. Yeah, you could have said 0 and you would have been right. I was going to test the lights, but I guess I'm not going to test the lights. Okay, officially nothing in this truck works. Okay, I found one thing that works. The rear right turn signal. Great. After screwing with the key for some time, the relay on the fender is now clicking, but the starter still doesn't do anything, so I'm gonna have to go get a hammer, I guess. Sometimes this works, but not in this case. Evan brought the hammer of truth. I'm gonna hold it to crank while he does that. It's a no, gang! Huh. I didn't even hit the brake pedal. Well, this starter's garbage. And I know that because half a pound of nasty aluminum dust has fallen out of it, but it still doesn't work. This is a random used starter we found in the shop, and that's what's gonna fix everything wrong with this truck. This sucks. I'm getting itchy. Nothing wrong here. No, come. Yeah, the sand. Gross. Yeah, so this doesn't do that thing it's supposed to do. You know, move. Lots of misery later. Ah! Hey, remember that whole shooting fluid all over you thing? Got me. That unsticking concoction smells truly magical. Wow. I smudged the camera and everything kind of looks like a mushroom trip. Yeah, just a bit of a bloodbath. The good news is that inner fender looks really nice now. And everything smells delightful. Ugh, still going. All right, well, it's getting better. It may have even built oil pressure just now. At this point, I'm ready to install some new spark plugs, and then we'll see if this thing has any kind of compression. And then we'll move on to the whole spark and fuel thing. But first, I really need to vacuum all of these nasty tree and squirrel pieces. Also, I need to spray the carburetor and try to get that thing to, like, close. And blow it out with air because it's full of debris. Who's ready for a 20-minute vacuuming montage? Come on. You won't even grab that. What an embarrassment. Just bad. I don't normally bother with this before starting. Okay, that was like 20 minutes and it was intense, especially like down here. And there's still so much more, but at least it's kind of sort of workable now. Tried to find some fresh plugs, but we don't seem to have the right ones in stock, so I'm probably just gonna throw these back in. They'll spark. Spark plugs installed. See what it sounds like now. These late 70s and 80s style starter relays are harder to jump with a screwdriver, but not impossible. You gotta wedge it under here. Now what we wanna hear when we crank this thing over is some compression, and ideally even compression. Let's see what we got. That was my bad. Come on, stay in there. Well, doesn't sound promising, if I'm honest. It's just all bad. What is wrong with this thing? Oh. No, I don't know. Okay, the throttle moves. It turned out to be like 3 separate issues. The carburetor now closes all the way and opens all the way, so that's great. I know I mentioned that it's highly unlikely we're going to have spark, and that's still true. But for now, I'm going to work under the assumption that we do, just for fun, and add some fuel to this thing. Now, when I say fuel, what I actually mean is this. This is like, I don't know, 30% engine oil and 70% fuel. We drained this out of that orange Cuda the other week. This should be perfect for starting an engine like this because it's got tons and tons of extra lubrication, which I guarantee you we're going to need. Apparently I left the key on for the last hour, so that's good. Ugh. Yeah, the interior's next. This is gross. Yeah, I hear like 4 healthy cylinders at best. All right, so far, so bad. It's making bad smells already. I guess we'll do a spark check. You know, it might have been worth looking at the distributor at some point.
It doesn't want to come off, does it?
No, it's corroded solid. These wires are garbage anyway. I mean, I'd love to give it a tune-up, but signs of life first would be really nice.
Yeah.
That's tight. Well, that won't be happening. How about that head? Wow, that's horrible. Yeah, so big surprise. No spark whatsoever at all. Okay, we have no ignition power. And I know that because I grabbed my trusty Power Probe 3 3. And I checked for power at coil positive. There is none. Note, I can power it up myself. And when I do, I hear clicking solenoids over there. Now, even when I power that coil up, I don't get a test spark. I don't get any sparks when it cranks. So that's not an encouraging sign for this computer over here. I think I already explained the fun fact that these are actually a GM column with a GM style ignition switch. Guess what's bad in this truck? This is connected to the ignition output on that switch. The key is on. There is no power, and if I do this, you hear the same clicking noises. People love to complain about Chrysler ignition systems so much, but it's the General Motors part that lets us down. Figure that one out. I am hearing the delay box for the wipers click now, so that's cool. The wiper motor's stuck, but at least the box clicks. Here's what the inside of the distributor looks like. Terrible, yeah. Cap looks like this. Totally wasted. Also, kind of surprised this is a single pickup distributor, but it is still locked out, no vacuum advance. I'm not at all surprised to find that various bits of Mouse House got launched out of the tailpipe. That's always fun. All right, I've tried everything that I can think of, everything that makes sense and a few things that don't, trying to determine if it's at all possible that it was just a bad coil and then a second bad coil. But I don't think so. I've tested with the power probe, with power jump to that ignition circuit, and I am never seeing a trigger from the computer. So no matter what, that thing needs to go. And we need to put a different ignition system on this. Now we've got a couple options for ignition systems. We could go the easy route and just pop a points distributor in here. We could put a Mopar electronic system on it, or we can get some goofy aftermarket setup. Ultimately, I suppose it's up to the owner. I just want to make sure we've got an engine worth working with before we spend any real money. So I'm probably just going to go dig up a points distributor, go through that real quick, make sure it does stuff, and then pop that in here. I did take the liberty of bringing the air hose back out and blowing as much debris as possible off of the distributor hold down plate. So hopefully I don't fill the engine with crap when I pull it out. The good news is it does crank now, and it's sounding better and better. We now have 7 happy cylinders just from various sessions of cranking, letting it sit, cranking again. And that's great. It's sounding healthier and healthier. So once I do get this ignition situation figured out, I can almost guarantee this thing's going to just fire up and be an okay runner. And hopefully that 8th cylinder will come back too. But we'll see. Of course, once the engine does run, that's only the beginning of this serious uphill battle, because every single electrical component in this thing pretty much needs to be ripped out and replaced. Ignition switch, headlight switch, wiper motor, blower motor probably, the windows don't work, most lights, etc. It's the next day, and I'm making an ignition system for the truck happen. I'm doing that, of course, by digging around in the back for a points distributor and then filing the points and adjusting them until it actually works, which you can tell by the way it beeps sometimes. Neat. After an extreme amount of misery that involved laying on the engine and reaching back here, and anyway, the distributor's in. The biggest issue is these late engines have dual oil switches, one for a gauge, one for a light, and they're mounted on like a tall Y thing, so it's pretty much impossible to get your distributor wrench back there. Plus the coil's in the way. It just sucks. Anyway, I connected the points distributor to the factory coil, which is still in place. I believe that is an internal resistor, no resistor required model. I could be wrong. You know, maybe we'll blow some stuff up. I don't know. Anyway, with that distributor in place, I'm going to try and fire this thing up again. Hopefully my random eyeball on the timing is close, and it'll give us something. Sparkies are promising. What kind of music do you normally have here? Oh, we have both kinds. Country and Western. The power probe today. That made this too easy. All right. Key is on. Seeing some smoke, but doesn't really seem to be doing anything. Oh, that was probably mega late. Okay, let's try that again. You can hear it's still got one distinctly weak cylinder. With any luck, that'll go away after it starts, but it might not. Okay, let's try actual gas. How about that? The third oil stuff might not have enough kick. That would be it. Okay, and now our timing's late. Okay, go. Now our timing's early. Still early. Huh. All right, a little bit more. Sure. That should do something. Watch your eyes. It's interesting. It's really particular about where it wants to be timed. Hey, come on. Maybe it's just really thirsty. Maybe. This is just ridiculous. Now remember, I am still using the original coil, which frankly may not be all that good, but we're getting sparks. Obviously, I'm kind of playing with the choke and throttle settings. Battery's smoking a little. It's okay. I'm about out of gas. I mean, I still have the yucky kind. I'm not sure it actually likes this. I will say, it's cranking happily now-ish. Maybe it does like it. Remember that whole stuff shooting out of the exhaust thing? It's getting better. Yes, clogged exhaust can be a factor in preventing an engine from running, but obviously this one's breathing. It's huffing all this crap out just fine, so I choose not to worry about that for now. If it does start, this will be ongoing for a while. Someone, somewhere out there right now, is typing the comment, "You gotta use more gas than that. That's not enough gas." Oh, in case you weren't paying attention, I pretty much put half of one of these in there, like all at one time. Anyway, believe it or not, I've done this before and I kind of have half an idea what needs to happen. Come on, big money! Oh, hey, put the cap back on. I think we got it. Ugh. It lives! And the trailer is a horrible mess now. The exhaust sounds terrible, as I'm sure you've noticed, but I think I figured out why. Well, that and the mouse house. Yeah, it pretty much sounds like garbage. There's a bunch of mechanical noises up here. Things are flying out of the radiator, the fan shroud, off the top of the engine, kind of from everywhere. But it did run, and it sounded okay. I probably should have started it in neutral. In park, these things do not circulate fluid through the torque converter and other parts of the transmission, so we need to get that happening. Then we'll figure out how low it actually is, and if we have any hope of a working transmission. Okay, I hooked up a gas can. I squirted some of that oily gas into the mechanical pump, and then I started it again. And now it idles. I know, I don't really believe it either. There is a smell to that, if you can believe it. Yeah, I think that muffler's still half plugged. Wow, it actually sounds good. The humming noise is the air pump, smog pump there. That's probably gonna be a fire in a minute. So many exciting smells. Can't run it long, but I do want to test the transmission. So there's neutral, circulate some fluid. Oh, the throttle pedal's still sticky, by the way. I'm not even really sure why. I think it's the cable. Anyway, here's drive. Yay. Here's reverse. Yay. We've got a working transmission. Now, this later system does feature a filter that has a return line to the tank, and I took the liberty of blocking that with some vice grips. I don't really want to pump a bunch of fresh fuel back there. We're not going to be running on the tank for, let's say, a while, if ever. Probably going to need to take that thing out and clean it. Thankfully, it should be plastic. Anyway, for now, we're going to run on this gallon jug, and that should be great. So essentially, the drivetrain, now that it's no longer lock solid, is in perfect factory original condition, and I'm going to be doing donuts in this thing in like 5 or 10 minutes. First though, I need to get it off the trailer, and my genius plan is to just drive it. Unfortunately, the brake pedal doesn't really do anything. In fact, like many other parts of this truck, it's kind of seized solid. I did stand on it and get it to budge a little bit, it's kind of a moot point because the master cylinder is completely dry, and even if it wasn't, the front right brake caliper is just not on this truck at all. So I grabbed some things to solve this situation. First, some brake fluid will top up the master. Second, some liquid wrench to hopefully get the pedal moving. And finally, vice grips to plug off the line that originally went to the front right caliper. Of course, we need to fix the brakes too, but that's a future Jamie problem. Now remember, the vice grips are temporary. I definitely wouldn't plug off a brake hose on a Dodge truck and then drive it for literally years that way. If you've watched my channel much, you'll know my usual technique for brakes is to just pour fluid in and start pumping. If you haven't watched my channel much, you'd be surprised to learn that usually works. In this case, well, it hasn't worked yet. This will come as a shock, but I think it might need a master cylinder. Now this hood was unfortunately damaged because it's disintegrating really badly. Definitely full of mouse poop. Anyway, I deleted the spring on that hinge with a pry bar and carefully hid behind the fender as it shot off and bounced off this way. And now, if you just close it from this side with some careful lubrication of that hinge, the hood works. It's just kind of heavy. It doesn't stay open quite as well as it's supposed to. I must have pumped the pedal 200 times and it didn't do anything. Now this has the advantage of being a later aluminum master cylinder. Racers love these things because they're ever so slightly lighter. They have an added side benefit of not being able to rust. But aluminum does corrode, and this one doesn't seem to be doing anything. So we're probably not going to have a working brake pedal without way more effort than it's worth today. And we need to go through this entire system anyway. Miraculously, the parking brake actually does something. This big lever here actuates both of the cables. It's pretty common for those to seize solid, but this one works.
Okay, this was really, really narrow coming off with the steps.
Oh.
They're really, really tight. I mean, we got it up there, but
I'll be careful.
I think Jamie's trapped in the truck. He can't get out. There we go.
This doesn't do.
And of course it's power windows, so the windows don't roll down.
It's on the ground and somehow I lived. The brake pedal isn't even a suggestion, and the emergency brake pedal only does something all the way at the floor. So that's fun. Also, can't open the driver's door from inside. That was a fun discovery. But the transmission goes right into gear. That's great. The mechanical pump is pumping. This thing idles perfectly now. Yeah, I'm impressed. It actually didn't take very much coolant. Outstanding. Oh, this poor truck. Anyway, I got the inside door handle working. Kind of. You know, that's something anyway. So many Dodge trucks, so little time. That one was right in the way of washing this one. It was totally out of gas. Thankfully, Thomas solved that problem for me. Well, now that kind of just smells like exhaust, so I guess that's an improvement. But judging by that, the kind of pressure coming out of that little hole, we've still got an issue. I found some more. Still burning stuff off that manifold. There is some blue smoke coming out the tailpipe as well. That should come as no surprise. This thing really does kind of run nicely. I know that's weird. it just purrs like a little baby kitty now. Like nothing ever happened. Maybe someday all of that goop will be burned off. Oh, dude. My wire fell, but it didn't actually come off. That's impressive. It circulated coolant. The radiator's nice and warm. You heard how it runs. It's just amazing. I haven't even changed the tune-up parts. I'm sure there are some amongst the viewership who appreciate this thing's current mossy look, but I think I'm contractually obligated to pressure wash it. Now there is a good chance that even over here on the nice side, well, the nicer side, the pressure washer loosens up some of that paint. You can see that silver two-tone deal is just chipping away at the edges already, so that could get a little bit worse. I'm not willing to sit here and hand scrape every little bit of moss on this truck, so the pressure washer is going to have to be the way. You know, the interior of the 86 and just about everything else about it is exactly the same as my 92, except in here mine is gray. Fueling up the Subaru. Only the finest of equipment. Oh. Yeah. That actually almost looks nice. Oh, I think my arms are gonna fall off. Been going at this for quite a while. Anyway, time for the big reveal. Hope you're sitting down. Wow. Okay, I mean, it looks better. It's not amazing, but it's better. All of the moss is gone, and in some places, this paint is actually kind of nice, which is weird. In other places, it's pretty seriously stained. That would be where moss was attached to it, soaking into the paint for like decades. Now, with a bunch of work, most of that will come out. See that? It's probably time for a hand wash. The driver's side's definitely still the good side. This passenger side is almost all stained like that. The only real paint casualty of the pressure washer, the pinstriping. Now, a lot of it was missing already, but the pressure washer definitely loosened a ton more, even if I wasn't trying or hitting that spot very hard. I do like the slowly disintegrating silver paint. It's kind of cool. The fact that this truck actually has paint on the roof and hood is just incredible. If you know 80s Dodges, you know many of them do not. Ugh. Something bit my knee. Hopefully it doesn't rot off. I did accidentally cover the pride of the fleet in chunks, so gotta fix that before moving on here. I wonder if this stuff tastes as good as it smells. I'm almost willing to find out. The hand wash is absolutely doing something. Look at this front section right here, and then this side of the hood. Compare that to what this side of the hood still looks like. Now, this is taking a lot of elbow grease, and as you can see, I'm still not getting all of it. It's gonna take a lot of work. Some kind of aggressive cleaning spray might help. Someone suggested Simple Green for something like this, and yeah, it may well do more than just scrubbing, but this is going pretty well. I'm gonna keep going with it. I don't know when I became the detail guy, but I guess that's where we're at now. Bad news! I found a hole. Scrubbing this is way too much work. Seriously. It is somewhat effective, but it's still stained in there. Here's what it looks like once it dries off. Not amazing, but again, way better. Now I'm going after the crappy passenger side. Look at the difference there. It all kind of looked like that, and now after some scrubbing, it looks like this. There are still some significant dark spots that are very stubborn, but hey, that too is a big improvement. It's not just good, it's good enough. But wait, there's more. So much more. Snacks. Wow. So nice. Now I know this is going to come as a shock, but this actually is the same truck I started with. I probably spent a little bit too much time vacuuming and wiping and protectanting this interior. Sure, there's still a pretty strong smell, but it's a start. I'd say this thing looks downright respectable at this point. The paint is even shiny in some places. Not many places, but some places. It's remarkably fuel efficient. It's only just occurred to me I never checked to see if it was charging. I actually pressure washed a bunch of the engine compartment too. Not the engine itself, but the bits I'm likely to have to touch while I'm doing a tune-up. It's better. That is a very annoying noise. Thank you. There actually is exhaust coming out of the tailpipe at this point. I'm pleased with that. Okay, I kind of missed almost the entire camper shell canopy thing. Oh, I see some more spots I missed. They really stick out now. Seriously though, it's actually shiny. I like it. This is a real shame. Unfortunately, the entire hood is buckled and rotten underneath, so that's not going to be an easy fix. I wouldn't want to replace it. I think what I might do is like weld or screw in a brace underneath. Some kind of reinforcement here. And then bash it back into shape. I'm sure this will come as a shock, but it smells kind of rich. I think the EGR was on. Did you hear that noise when it shut off? Okay, I guess it just lives here now. I think this stupid carburetor needs to go. One of those Edelbrock AVS2 4 barrels, a small one, would do wonders on this thing. Oh, I forgot to finish pulling the vines out from behind the grill. Ow! It's stabby. Oh, I missed a spot. A really big spot. There's going to be a lot of that. What was I talking about? I don't even know. Yesterday, this thing was a very dead Dodge. Today, we've got a viable project vehicle. And probably some kind of horrible rodent-borne illness. The very sticky throttle is a problem. I think it's actually in the throttle cable, which is weird. The throttle pedal moves freely, and the throttle on the carburetor does the same, but for some reason, it's still sticky and weird, so we're going to have to address that. And then the whole carburetor situation. And then, of course, brakes. Despite my best efforts, by which, of course, I mean just dumping fluid in and pumping the pedal, this still does nothing, so we're going to have to address that. I think Evan's going to be replacing all of the brake components on this truck in the next couple days, so that should solve that problem. But there's plenty more to do. As you've seen in this video, very few electrical things work in this truck. The list goes on and on. Someday some upholstery would be nice, ideally replacing that nasty carpet. The headliner's falling down. I'm pretty sure there's a rat's nest above it, which is why there's a little rust hole in the roof. The rims are just shot. The chrome's disintegrating. These tires are decidedly May pops. In fact, I probably shouldn't sit this close. It has occurred to me that some members of the viewership may be looking at this truck and wondering, is it even worth doing all that? From a financial standpoint, no. No, it's not. For the budget we've been given for this project, we could probably go buy 2 or 3 more of these trucks in similar condition. But from a sentimental standpoint, absolutely. If you ask me, that's really the only reason to get involved in a project like this, because it means something to you. My dad's been gone 28 years now. If I had the chance to get one of his rigs back, yeah, I'd pay a lot for that. Even one of the Fords. If this were my dad's truck, I'd do whatever it takes to fix it and get it back on the road. I totally understand that. A friend of mine has a Duster that he bought from his dad way back in the 80s and lovingly restored in the 90s. At a certain juncture, there was a chance of replacing the throttle pedal. He said, "No, I can't do that. That's the throttle pedal my dad's foot sat on, and it just has to stay there." I really like that sentiment. We are so quick to throw away things and replace them in today's society. The chance to save something like this that's actually worth something, that means something, that has real value, well, that's the kind of thing that gets me up in the morning and keeps me going with this crazy car hobby thing. Also, I've found all kinds of interesting things on this truck, but you know what I haven't found? Rust. It's actually, like, nice, which seems odd given where it was parked. You Midwest guys have never even seen this part of an 80s Dodge. Even here in the Northwest, we don't normally have this part of the floor, so hey, maybe this is a viable restoration candidate. Anyway, hopefully all of that made sense. And hopefully you enjoyed this. I certainly did. What a transformation. As mentioned, we'll be doing a whole lot more with this truck over the next couple weeks. I don't know if you'll see any of that on video or not. Maybe. If it seems interesting enough. Until then, as ever, thank you very much for watching. And remember, don't park your truck in a forest for 20 years. Your children will thank you. So many fun noises. There. I didn't even crash into my car. Or my car. Oh, look. A crazy person.